Hi, and welcome back to another episode of New Old Songs Untold, episode 37, I believe.
Yes.
I'm Anna. I'm here with Nick. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well.
Nice. Today we will be talking about Tom Petty and also the Heartbreakers at the same time.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of just combining Tom Petty and then Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers together in one episode. So do we want to get into a little bit of the history of the artist?
Thomas Earl Petty was born October 20th, 1950 in Gainesville, Florida. He obviously was an American singer, songwriter, musician, record producer, and actor.
He was an actor?
He was. Not in like anything. He was like in a one TV show, I think. And like a couple guest spots and some stuff like that.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
He was the lead vocalist in many groups, mainly the lead vocalist and guitarist of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, formed in 1976. Before that, he previously led the band Mud Crunch.
Mud Crotch, I think.
Crotch?
Yeah.
Is it Crotch?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you're right.
I've
Mud
heard
Crotch.
of that before.
Mud Crotch. He is also a member of the late 1980s supergroup, the Traveling Wilburys, which had George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, and Jeff Lynne as well. Total, he was on 23 total studio albums.
Dang.
Which is quite a bit.
He was a busy bee.
And I know the last one he was on, I think the Tom Petty and Heartbreakers had one that came out in 2014 was the last one.
Yeah, or 2015.
One
maybe.
of them.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, who he played with the longest, their music was kind of characterized as both Southern rock and like Heartland rock. They were compared to people like Bruce Springsteen, Bob Seger, and John Mellencamp.
Yeah.
In 2006, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers received the Billboard Century Award, which is the highest award that Billboard has for artists. They were inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001 and had an exhibit from July. In the museum, they actually had an exhibit from July 2006 to 2007. He passed away of an accidental overdose on October 2nd, 2017.
Yeah, I think he struggled with drug addiction.
Yeah, and this was 1 week after the end of the Heartbreakers 40th anniversary tour.
Gotcha.
So, shall we get into top 10? Or
yeah,
no?
Do you have any initial thoughts before we get into our top 10?
Thoughts. I feel like we haven't done an actual artist episode in forever.
I don't know what we're doing
getting
now.
back into the groove. Yeah, I was really I was excited quite a bit because I enjoy a lot of his music, but I also haven't really explored a lot of it. So
yeah.
That's kind of where I was.
I was kind of in the same boat, but I wasn't really that excited.
Really?
I don't know. Like, the stuff I heard, I like, obviously, is, like, popular songs. But going into this episode, I was like, yeah, I probably won't like that much.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least. But, yeah, should we get into our top 10?
Yeah, we'll start with the Spotify.
All right.
Spotify number 10 is, and I will let you guys know if it's from Tom Petty or just Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, and I'll try to remember on my songs, but I might mess it up because it's hard to. They all sound.
If we have the same ones,
similar.
I have it marked on my list. So
cool.
All right, so number 10 for Spotify was "Refugee," off of "Damn the Torpedoes," with 48 million plays, and that was obviously Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Nice.
What was your number 10?
My number 10 is "Feel a Whole Lot Better" from his album Full Moon Fever. So that's just Tom Petty.
Yep.
That one is one of his more popular albums.
Probably his most popular.
Yeah. So this one, I don't have a lot to say about it just because there wasn't a lot of information about it, but it has a very upbeat, almost like 60s sounding melody, and I thought that was really cool because obviously a lot of his stuff came out in late 70s or 80s. And it's just a very like feel good song. It is honestly like, I liked a lot of his slower songs, but this is one of the like faster paced ones that I really liked and was surprised by because I'd never heard this song before. Yeah, and I was going to mention in the history part that he's really influenced by Elvis Presley and the Beatles.
Yeah, I forgot to type that in there, but
I think he got to meet Elvis
when he was like 10 or something, right?
Yes,
yeah,
and that is what made him want to be a musician. So that was really interesting. And also, I think he watched the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and like many young aspiring musicians, that just made him want to be in a band. Basically, he thought that was so fun just to like get your friends together and be in a band. So I can definitely hear the influences of like older, 50s and 60s music in his songs. But that is Feel a Whole Lot Better for my number 10.
All right, my number 10 is Into the Great Wide Open off of Into the Great Wide Open, 1991, and that is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It is. I found this quote that I think like kind of like sums up the song pretty good. It's one of Petty's most vivid story songs, chronicling the demise of a guitar-toting rebel without a clue who comes to Los Angeles and gets eaten alive by the record industry.
Nice.
It kind of sums up the song perfectly, and the like tone is very dreadful. It is. It's a very dreadful song, and it matches the like his tone, the guitar tone, the tone of his voice, all match the song lyrics perfectly, and I really just enjoy how it all, even though it's a kind of a dreading kind of sounding song, it kind of all comes together perfectly. So that was my number 10, Into the Great Wide Open.
All
right, on to number 9. Number 9 for Spotify was Breakdown, which is off the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album.
Yeah, that's on my honorable mentions.
With 60 million plays. What is your number 9?
My number 9 is Only a Broken Heart off of the album Wildflowers, which is just a Tom Petty album.
Yep.
So this was kind of about like the hopelessness of a broken heart, and it has this really beautiful acoustic guitar arrangement. He uses very like soft vocals that really speaks to the themes of like loss and sadness in the song, and I feel like this album, like, it fits his voice so much better. Like the style of it is almost like with Bruce Springsteen in Nebraska. Like it felt like that kind of album. And I feel like it also shows off his songwriting abilities a lot better.
It really does.
Yeah, like I really liked this album. I had never really listened to it. I think there's like one song that was a hit. I have it on my list. I don't remember which one, but I'll talk about it later.
I have a couple.
I think it's You Don't Know How It Feels was off of that album also. Yeah. And that's a pretty big hit as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that I had never heard of, and I loved that album. So that is Only a Broken Heart for my number 9.
My number 9 is off the same album, Wildflowers. 1994 that album came out. I found a quote from Tom Petty of how he wrote this song. So this song is actually very popular too. Wildflowers.
Oh, it's the Wildflowers.
Yeah, Wildflowers.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. Wildflowers off of Wildflowers.
Yeah, okay.
This song is actually very popular too. I just didn't know it before. I think I've heard of it before, but just briefly.
I've heard this song, well, I think once or twice before.
But I have this quote from Tom Petty, and it's explaining the song. He said, "I took a deep breath, and it came out, the whole song, stream of consonants, words, music, chorus, finished it. I mean, I played it into a tape recorder. I played the whole song. I never played it again. I actually only spent 3.5 minutes on the whole song. So I'd come back for days playing the tape, thinking there must be something wrong here because it just came out too easy. Then I realized there's probably nothing wrong at all."
Yeah, I found that same exact quote for when I have it on my list.
Wild. That's like...
Yeah, so he basically just went in the studio and ad-libbed the whole song.
In one take.
Yeah.
The song's one take.
It's crazy.
3 minutes. And it's like, you can tell that obviously it was something just popped out of him because it's a gorgeous song. It really is tone-wise.
It's simple but so beautiful at the same time.
And I think that's a great way to describe that whole album where, like you said, it is kind of like his version of Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. Obviously, they don't sound exactly the same or the same undertones of it. It
feels more like raw and personal than his other albums.
So that was my number 9, Wildflowers.
All right, on to number 8.
Number 8 for Spotify is You Don't Know How It Feels off of the Wildflowers album. And that's just Tom Petty one, as we've been talking about, with 75 million plays.
All right.
What is your number 8?
My number 8 is Rockin' Around With You by it's from the album Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So it's a self-titled album. Obviously, it's by them as well.
Yep.
So it starts out with a really like upbeat bass line, which I liked, and there's not really a lot of words. They kind of just repeat the same phrases over and over again, but the vocal delivery sounds so cool. It's almost like psychedelic sounding as he like holds out the notes really long. And to me, it sounded like a later Beatles album or song with a like punk song mixed together. It sounded so cool. I just loved how like the whole the vibe of it felt. And yeah, so that's Rocking Around With You for my number 8.
My number 8 is Learning to Fly off of the Into the Great Wide Open. This is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I also really did enjoy this album too quite a bit.
Yeah.
1991 it came out. I just love how like simple this song is, like very simple. It's very simple and it's like a soft tone that it kind of just works perfectly for his voice. Like I think there's a lot of things I'll talk about. Well, there's a lot, not many. I can't talk right now. There's a lot of the same reasons why I like a lot of his music because it's. I think his voice is such a soft toned voice, but it matches somehow perfectly to a fast paced songs, and we'll get to where they're more like upper my list. But
he I feel like he's one of the artists that like doesn't have a great voice, but like if the way he uses it is very important. So like if he uses it in a very like stylistic way, which he does a lot of the time, it works out really well.
Like Bruce Springsteen, and I see that comparison. Anyways, Learn to Fly peaked at number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100. A lot of his songs peaked pretty high for the Billboard charts. A lot of hits. So that was my number 8, Learning to Fly.
Yeah, that's a good one. I almost put it on my list, but not quite.
Song. On to number 7.
Number 7. Spotify number 7.
Spotify number 7 is Wildflowers off of the Wildflowers album, as we talked about before, with 87 million plays.
Yeah.
What is yours?
My number 7 is You Don't Know How It Feels from Wildflowers by Tom Petty. So this one reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot Mainstream Rock, and then it was number 13 on Billboard Hot 100. I feel like this is one of the songs, and he has a lot of songs like this, where it's like, you don't even realize that you know this song until you listen to it. You're like, oh yeah, it's that song. I've heard it a million times. Because he has just so many hits. Like even like Learning to Fly, just the title of Learning to Fly is like, I don't know that song.
I know, right?
But then I listened to it, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that, on the radio or whatever.
Definitely.
But yeah, so this song is interesting. I was reading about it. They said, so the lyrics say like, let's roll another joint. It's actually, the title is always like, people think that's the title instead of You Don't Know How It Feels, because they say that a lot. But there's apparently a version that they distributed to radio stations that changed that line to let's hit another joint, which I thought was so weird because that seems almost worse than the rolling one.
I think they did that for like the MTV versions too, because it came out in like 94, so I think that was when MTV was starting to get into the music video. The music video.
And what year?
1994.
Well, it was in the 80s. It was pretty popular with the music videos too. But
no, I know, but I'm just saying that MTV had that. So this song would have probably been on MTV.
Yes.
So.
But yeah, I just thought that was hilarious because I was like, why would you change it to that? But yeah, it has such that that super iconic harmonica in the beginning that like once you hear that you're like, oh, this is such a great song, and yeah, it just has such a cool and chill vibe to it that I really like this one. But that's You Don't Know How It Feels for my number 7.
All right, my number 7 is probably his most popular song, but that's Free Falling off of Full Moon Fever, 1989. That's one of his solo albums. So I read kind of, this song isn't about like a single person that he's talking about in the song. He said that while he was driving along Ventura Boulevard, sorry, that he mentions in the song, he would drive that quite a bit, and he kind of just wrote a song based on the people he saw.
Yeah.
This was the first Tom Petty song I think I ever heard, like that I remember hearing.
Yeah.
It's such a classic. It's so good. It peaked at number 7, Billboard Hot 100. I mean,
everybody knows this
everyone
song.
knows the song. I don't really need to say too much about it. So that's my number 7, Free Falling.
All right, on to number 6.
Number 6 is Learning to Fly off of Into the Great Wide Open with 120 million plays.
All right. My number 6 is Wildflowers off of the Wildflowers album. I literally grabbed the same exact quote that you were talking about.
It's such an awesome
because it was so
quote.
cool. Yeah. But yeah, this song and this kind of whole album has a very like simple but effective folk sound. It's very simple chord progressions. And this song has a very like almost like country orientated rhythm to it. And I really liked that. I kind of didn't expect that out of him, I guess. But yeah, it sounds very sweet and natural, and I love how different it sounds from a lot of his songs
Yeah.
because, you know, all of his hits, they kind of have the same sort of sound, but, you know, it was fun seeing what else he could do with his voice and his songwriting
Definitely.
ability. But yeah, that's Wildflowers for my number 6.
All right, on to number 5.
What about your number 6?
Oh, just kidding. We have to do my number 6 first.
Unless you just don't want to
No,
talk.
I
That's
just
fine.
don't want to talk anymore. My number 6 is "Don't Do Me Like That," off of "Damn the Torpedoes," Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, 1979.
I didn't even realize that song was by Tom Petty. Like, I knew that song, but I didn't realize that was him.
Neither did I. It doesn't really sound like a Tom Petty song at all. Which this is, I think, like the most like mainstream pop-ish sound he sounds is
I would
this
agree.
song.
It's not quite as rock.
Especially for that like late 70s, early 80s. Like this is a very like early 80s song to me. And it is like I still listen to it and I was like, it's still it's a good song. It's everyone knows it. It's a simple, catchy song. And he actually wrote the song and recorded a demo with his first band, Mud Crotch, and almost gave the song to the Jay Gillis band, but ended up hearing the Damn Torpedoes like during a session or something, and basically it was like, "Yep, you are my band now," essentially, and they recorded this song. Like I said, it's just a classic. It's like one of his more like upbeat, fast tempo songs that not many are.
Yeah,
there's a lot of up tempo, but
it's not
tone
quite
wise,
like that Heartland like southern rock. It's very different than that sound.
But and it peaked at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. So that was my number 6. Don't Do Me Like That.
All right.
So now on to number 5.
Now on to number 5.
Number 5 is Running Down a Dream off of Full Moon Fever, 132 million plays, and that is just a Tom Petty song.
All right. My number 5 is Free Fallin'. So you kind of just talked about this.
Man, I'm stealing one of your thunder today.
Yeah, you know, it's fine. But that's off of Full Moon Fever. And yeah, so you kind of talked about he would drive around LA and kind of just get inspiration. And the lyrics kind of deal with like Los Angeles culture. You know, it mentions a lot of places like Reseda, Mulholland, and Ventura Boulevard. But the lyrics, it kind of implies, I don't know, different things, because like it kind of is talking about how like in LA people will like use people for personal gain, you know, how the singer dumps the girl but doesn't even miss her. But also some people see it as like an ode to LA, where it's like kind of celebrating that. So it's kind of mixed opinions on what the song really means.
I think interesting too is a lot of his songs, what I found, were written not off of personal experiences, but more or less like storytelling.
This was actually personal experience.
Well, more or less, sorry, not his, like the song wasn't like about, like he said, it wasn't about a single person that he ran into, like that he experienced, like the girl or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So it was written as a third, looking into someone else's life. And a lot of, I saw a lot of that he just came up with the idea, wrote a song about it.
Yeah, because this one specifically, I think I was reading that he was just kind of messing around with a guitar part, and he just like sang some random words, which were, you know, she's a good girl, loves her mama, and he only said that to make like the other guy laugh or something. But then they just rolled with it and they wrote this whole song.
Yeah, I found that interesting with like how well the songs are written, and they like, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them were kind of written there's stories that he's making up, which based off like something obviously, but they're not like personal experiences. A lot of songwriters take from personal experiences.
Yeah, and this whole album, I have in my next, on my number 4, I'll talk more about this album as a whole, because I found really interesting information. But this album was written after he had like a house fire. So he was driving back and forth from like a hotel to his house, and that's why he was driving around all these areas. But yeah, I always loved the lyrics. There's a freeway running through the yard. I don't know why, but those always just like stuck with me. And obviously, it's one of his biggest hits. This song. And I think it's just so like down to earth and real sounding, and that's why it makes it so like relatable and amazing. But that is Free Falling for my number 5.
Alrighty, my number 5 is same album. Not surprising. This is a great album. I Won't Back Down.
That's my number 4.
Ooh, look at that. And off of, obviously, Full Moon Fever, 1989, it came out. The song is about a message to like an unknown force It's kind of what I saw. Like, it's not anyone in particular. This was I think one of the examples I was thinking of when I was just spewing off that.
See, I have a whole
Oh,
story
you have a whole
behind
different
this.
story behind
Yeah.
it. This was like the simple version I found for
Yeah.
like the, but basically it was him not backing down, or I should say the author or the writer of the song not backing
The
down.
narrator, yeah.
Narrator, I should say, not backing down to, I won't back down. To whatever it may
From
be.
whatever challenge.
I see. I find it's a simple song, but it's really like the guitar in the song is
Yeah,
really
it sounds
good.
really
It's
cool.
so good. And I think that's what I like the most about the song, honestly.
Yeah, it's almost like the backbone of the song, the guitar.
And it's such an easy song to listen to. Like a lot of his music's, I think, very like I know how do we describe some accessible music?
Accessible
and I
music.
think he's very accessible to
I would agree.
any ear. It peaked at number 12 in the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. And do you have the lawsuit story in yours or no?
The lawsuit story. I don't think so.
Did you read? So Sam Smith's "Stay With Me."
Oh, I've heard of this though.
So
yeah.
when was that? Like 2015 or something. So "Stay With Me" by Sam Smith. So basically, that song came out, and Tom Petty's like basically record label was like, no,
Yeah.
because it sounds very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently Sam Smith never heard of the song, which blew my mind.
He never heard.
Yeah.
I Won't Back Down.
Before writing "Stay With Me," but
Yeah.
they ended up. It was like very civil. It wasn't like anything. They
Yeah.
settled, and
I mean,
he like agreed that like yes, it sounds very similar. And Tom Petty was even like, it's like one of those things where it's not like so much music's been made ever. It's not like you're
I mean,
bound to-
most of the people who like accidentally copy something it's not on purpose. Like, obviously some people
I
do
just
it
found
on purpose.
yeah.
But
I just found that interesting.
Yeah, that is kinda
When he
funny.
said I'd never heard the song before, I was
It's
like,
like,
I
oh,
don't
okay.
believe you. So that was my number
Sure.
5. I Won't Back Down.
All right,
We are on to number 4.
number 4.
Number 4 for the audience is Mary Jane's Last Dance, and that is off. So I had 152 million
Yeah.
plays. It's a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers song. Did they just release that song on the Greatest Hits album?
Maybe.
Because that's all I could find information that it got released in '93 off
I
of
forgot
Greatest Hits
about
album.
that song.
Oh, I'll be talking about it.
Okay,
So,
good, because I actually really love that song, but
Yep.
it's not on my list because I forgot about it completely.
Yep, I also love the song. So
There's always a song I miss that I'm like,
All right.
oh, I love that song.
I know.
Oh well.
All right, so obviously we'll go straight to your number 5 since I just
My number 4.
or number 4 since I just
Yep.
talked about your number 4.
Yes, so my number 4 is the same number 5 that you were talking about. I Won't Back Down off of Full Moon Fever. So I have some background of this album because I thought it was very interesting. So before recording Full Moon Fever, an arsonist actually burned down Tom Petty's house while he was in it with his family and
Dang.
their housekeeper. And so they escaped, obviously, and they weren't hurt or anything, but his his like house was destroyed.
Yeah.
And so then, the next month he was driving between hotel rooms and a rented house, and apparently he was pretty shaken up about it, obviously because someone like intentionally tried to burn down his house. And so it was on these drives that he came up with a lot of the songs for the album, and apparently the fire was a huge influence, especially on this song, because Petty felt, he felt very grateful to be alive, but also like, also like traumatized. So
I Won't Back Down.
yeah,
I
it was
see.
kind of a way
That
of
makes sense.
reclaiming his life and getting past like the torments. And he said writing it and recording it had a very calming effect on him. And this was the first album, or the first single without the Heartbreakers credited as his backing band, but a lot of the members still played on this album.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like it's so funny when you say like Tom Petty or Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They're all kind of mixed together.
even
because,
like there was another album exactly like that too.
yeah,
I
where
forgot which
they're
one
not credited, but they worked on the album, so
literally,
it
like,
has a
most
very
of them-
similar sound.
Most of them were on the album.
Yeah. But yeah, we talked about how love the guitar, and yeah, the song just feels, I don't know, kind of personal, more personal than some of his others, and it has a lot of true feelings and heart in it, and I think that's why I like it. But that's I Won't Back Down for my number 4.
All right, my number 4 is Running Down a Dream off of Full Moon Fever,
Classic.
1989. Tom Petty, obviously. This song is about, from what I've found, kind of his like musical roots, and him like trying to make it is what it seemed like what it was about, like him trying to make it in the music industry. And I think this is like a very classic Tom Petty sounding song, which I know that sounds weird to describe it as, but it's a song that you can play at a party, but also just play and listen to it by yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those.
It's a versatile.
It's
song.
a very versatile. It's just classic Tom Petty. The soft tone voice, to the little bit speeded up tempo of the rest of the music of the song, and it's just classic. It peaked at number 23 in the Billboard Hot 100.
All right.
So that was my number 4, Running Down a Dream. On to number 3.
Yes, number 3.
Number 3 is I Won't Back Down, as we talked about, off of Full Moon Fever, 161 million plays.
All right, my number 3 is Refugee, off of the album Damn the Torpedoes. So apparently they made this album in the wake of like issues with the music business, and apparently like their label sold their contract without their permission. So they were very amped up and angry. So I think this song and like the whole album has a very like defiant tone to it. I have a quote from him about this song or the album, saying that we're always hearing that we're the future of rock and roll, and I don't want to be the future, I want to be the present. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it like that, because you know, I feel like in the business they're always looking for like the next thing.
The next big thing.
Yeah, but they just wanted to like kind of capture this moment.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
That was pretty cool.
But yeah, this song is more of like a in-your-face rock song about freedom,
and
it sounds very loud and powerful. And I love they performed this, I think it was the last song they performed at their Live Aid concert. Do you know what Live Aid is?
Yes.
Yeah, it was this big benefit concert in the 80s, and it's such an epic performance. I would have loved to see that. I always think about that when I hear this song. But yeah, that's Refugee for my number 3.
My number 3 is Mary Jane's Last Dance. And I'm pretty sure they released it on their Greatest Hits album and didn't release it anywhere else.
Yeah, it might have been like a single, and then they just threw it on.
It could have been. But it literally, I looked it up and it said released Greatest Hits 1993.
Yeah.
Which is a power move, if that's how they did it.
You know, they went for it.
The guitar in the beginning of the song is so great, so good. It is a great example of, I think, what Tom Petty is best at. And that's kind of as we talked about. He's got the soft tone voice, but with the up-tempo rock-style guitar to it.
That one also sounds a little bit psychedelic at certain points, which I like.
It does. It's not as, like... It's like I get a little, like, Jimi Hendrix vibes with the guitar, but then I love the soft voice to it. I don't know why. It works so well in my mind. I don't know why. But... And it's funny. So, it says Mary Jane's Last Dance, and forever people are like, oh, talking about weed, you know, and... So basically, the song is either guitarist Mike Campbell said you can kind of take it however you want, but it's either kind of about a song about weed, or it's actually like a goodbye love song to somebody who's Mary Jane. Yes. Who I believe is like she's leaving Indiana or something and obviously he's not. So it's like a goodbye love song. I love this song. It peaked at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. Yeah. It's such a good song.
Honestly, that probably would have been like my number 2 or 3, but I just forgot that it existed.
So that is Mary Jane's Last Dance for my number 3.
All right.
We're on to number 2.
Number 2
for Spotify is American Girl, with 174 million plays, and I think 100 million of them are mine. Tom Petty.
Wow, I really like that one.
I do. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers is the album that's off of their self-titled off.
So my number 2 is You're So Bad. Sorry, I just have a hairball tonight. So my number 2 is You're So Bad off of Full Moon Fever. Yeah, I had never heard this song before, but it's kind of a funny, like, clever song. It's about how his sister takes advantage of, like, her husband, and it kind of does all these, like, bad things. And in the song, he's using bad as, like, a weird, ironic way, because then he talks, you know, how his sister's really bad, but then he calls like his like girlfriend or whatever like also bad, but in like a good bad way. So it's kind of a funny song. I feel like it just has like it's a really unique song. It like just grabbed my attention.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of was just like looking at the hits of this album, and then I heard this song. I was like, well, I have to, like, this
I
is
know.
such a good song. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even see it coming. And it's got that classic Tom Petty, like, very catchy drum beats that just, like, makes you want to,
Yeah.
like, move a little bit, and a very upbeat but cool sounding song. So, yeah, that's You're So Bad for my number two.
I really did like that song too.
Yeah, it's a good one.
My number two is "You Don't Know How It Feels" off of Wildflowers, 1994, which you already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's such a song is a perfect like chill song. And again, it's another great example of like the soft tone with an up tempo guitar to it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the tempo. I think like I feel like the tone's a little softer in the song than a lot of the ones, but I think the tempo is what keeps you, as I said, it awake through the song, and with a great crafted lyrics with it, just melts perfectly
Yeah,
together.
it's a little more folksy
Yeah,
than
it
some of
is.
his other ones.
It peaked at number one on the Billboard Hot 100, which was I think one of the only number ones that I saw that peaked, but it was very popular,
Yeah.
obviously. So that is my number two. You Don't Know How It Feels. What are
Alright.
your honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions. So mine are American Girl, Learning to Fly, The Waiting, Breakdown, Time to Move On. And I would have put Last Dance.
Mary Jane,
Yeah.
Last Dance,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, my honorable mentions are You Wreck Me, Breakdown, Refugee, Time to Move On, and Don't Come Around Here No More. All right,
Number one.
audience or Spotify number one is no surprise, Free Falling,
Yes.
off of Full Moon Fever, 341 million plays. I actually have no idea what your number one is. Like,
It's a hidden gem for
all right,
sure.
what's your number one?
My number one is To Find a Friend off of Wildflowers. You
don't
probably
remember
don't
that.
remember
I
this
don't
one.
remember that one,
Yeah,
no.
it's easy to glaze over. But yeah, so in this song, he kind of describes like the classic midlife crisis.
Okay.
And the lyrics show how like one person's restlessness and like a single selfish decision can affect many lives down the line. It has such like a ringing folk country sound with a very catchy rhythm, and I love the whole sound and feel of this song.
Mhm.
It's very like it's like dreamy and like reflective, and I don't know, it really like blew me away. I think this one in particular on this album showcases his really amazing songwriting abilities, and also his ability to like tell a very familiar story in a way that feels fresh and new and like you've never heard it before. Because obviously, like the theme of like a midlife crisis is something we've all heard a lot, but he just like I don't know, he just says it in a way that makes it sound so different, and I love that. So yeah, I didn't expect to have this song as my number one, but then
Yeah.
I was listening and I was just like, I can't not put
Yep.
it at my number one, because it was one of those discovery songs that I was just like, wow, like I really like this song. But that is To Find a Friend for my number one.
All right, my number one is American Girl.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Off of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, 1976. This is just a classic rock song.
Yeah.
I think this is noted as like their like best song by a lot of people. I think this is just a classic rock song. The intro hooks you instantly, and then when his like voice comes in, it kind of just like it's a go out and like drive song. I
Yeah,
think
there's
it's
nice harmonies in there too.
It really is. It's a perfect like it's again the up tempo guitar, and this is a very like I think one of his more rock like
Yeah.
southern rock I would say more inspired songs for sure. But he still has the softer tone voice obviously, and it has a beautiful guitar riff in the middle of it. That's
Yeah,
so good.
I think this song is one of those ones that I heard too much that I just like couldn't get past it.
I
Like
get
Free
it.
Falling and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I've heard that a lot, but I still really like it.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, I just think I heard it a little bit too much. But it is a
Yeah.
great song.
So he wrote the song when he was living in California, and the song kind of draws from all different like his experiences while being there. I think part of it was, I think two of the bandmates had a apartment right next to a highway, so there's a lot of things with that, and he kind of just drew from his experiences or the people surrounding like an ode to, like you said, an ode to kind of California or LA. And,
Yeah, it has a very like normal person, everyday life kind of, slice of life almost idea.
Yeah,
and
I
I think
think-
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess. All right, we'll go. That was my number one, American Girl.
Yeah.
But I guess like I think what I found most interesting about him is how he was able to construct songs that felt very personal but very impersonable, if that's
Yeah.
the right way to explain that.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know what I mean? It's like he was very good at that, making a very weird, like not weird, but a idea or something that's not even personal necessarily to him feel personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Should we go through our top 10 real quick?
We can. Let's run it back.
Before we forget.
Before we
So
forget.
my number 10 was Feel a Whole Lot Better. My number 9 was Only a Broken Heart. My number 8 was Rocking Around with You. My number 7 is You Don't Know How It Feels. My number 6 is Wildflowers. My number 5 is Free Fallin'. My number 4 is I Won't Back Down. My number 3 is Refugee. My number... that rhymed, I didn't even notice. My number 2 is You're So Bad. And my number 1 is To Find a Friend.
Alright, my number 10 is Into the Great Wide Open. My number 9 is Wildflowers. My number 8 is Learning to Fly. My number 7 is Free Falling. My number 6 is Don't Do Me Like That. My number 5 is I Won't Back Down. My number 4 is Running Down a Dream. My number 3 is Mary Jane's Last Dance. And my number 2 is You Don't Know How It Feels. And my number 1 is American Girl.
All right.
So what you think? I kind of already said my thoughts, but...
Yeah.
what you
I think so when I was listening to them, I started with Damn the Torpedoes. And I wasn't like, besides the hits, I was like, I'm not really feeling this. Like the whole sound just didn't quite hit me right. And then once I got into more of his music and heard some of like the range and like the versatility he had, I really liked him a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, there's a lot, I think, two like whole albums that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like we kind of talked about, I think Wildflowers and then Full Moon Fever's probably was my favorite.
Yeah.
I know that's people's like the popular one to pick.
Yeah, I would
but
say Wildflowers was my favorite, and then Full Moon Fever was my second.
I did
favorite.
also like Damn the Torpedoes too, because it was very interesting. There's a lot of interesting sounding songs on that.
Yeah. I know that one's really popular, and it didn't do it for me.
I didn't necessarily like. I liked it because it was different, a lot different than some of their other stuff. But
yeah, I think he, I didn't realize. I mean, obviously, like his hits, we've heard a million times, and so you kind of assume that all of his songs are kind of in that same vein, which some of them are, but some of them are just completely different, but in like a unique and good way.
And he definitely has like I know we compared him to like a Bruce Springsteen, but they're both very like he's very unique and like in the way he sounds and in the way like his music he made his music.
I feel like he kind of just takes his own experiences and like his own perspective and story and like makes it into a song that anyone could listen to and relate to, and I think that's kind of one of his biggest strengths as a songwriter. All
right, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode on Tom Petty. Thank you guys for listening and watching. If you're watching, please subscribe, like the video. If you're listening, check out both listening and watching, check out our previous episodes. Follow us on our social medias, Twitter and Instagram, at Songs Untold.
If you want to listen to any of the songs that we talked about in this episode or previous episodes, you can check out our playlist, the New Old and Songs Untold podcast playlist on Spotify.
And next week we have no idea what we're doing yet, so
it'll be a surprise.
Probably be some sort of list or reaction video.
I think we'll probably find some type of list that we find interesting and react to it. So that should be fun.
Thank you guys for listening and have a great week.